The solo 1-bar Magicka Sorcerer build is now easier than ever thanks to subclassing. Not only can we get more damage through a variety of skill lines, we can even unlock more healing and increased survivability, all while still maintaining the same ridiculously easy playstyle with 0 bar swapping and with no trials gear necessary. Honestly, it does not get any easier than this, and I can't wait to show you this 1-bar build update. So let's jump right into it. Alright everybody, here we are back on the 1-bar Magicka Sorcerer, and it's time to update this build for subclassing. 2 different versions of the build we'll be taking a look at, more of a beginner version and then a little bit more of an advanced version. So let's go ahead and jump right into things. Taking a look at the buff stats on this build, it's pretty simple actually. But taking a look at the character sheet, we've got 30k max Magicka, 26, almost 27,000 max health, 18,000 max stamina. Recoveries really are a non-issue because it is a heavy attack build. Really good weapon and spell damage as well as crit chance, resistances as well. And then we do have a nice debuff for penetration that's going to come from one of our subclassing skill lines. So that's going to be great for solo content as well. In terms of your attributes, you want 64 points into Magicka. This is still a Magicka Sorcerer build. At base, Mundus Stone would be the Thief Mundus for the extra crit chance. As far as the food here, we are still using Bewitched Sugar Skulls for the max stats. You can see all the other buffs that we have access to, of course. This comes from one of our gear pieces. In terms of potions on this build, really anything is fine. You could run basic Magicka or a health potion, even for a bit of extra health recovery. Tri-stat potions are great if you have them. Over on the website, I'll have the recipe for this armor potion, which is actually a really nice option for the 1-bar Magicka Sorcerer, as well as this gives you health recovery. It gives you an extra spell and physical resistance buff. So it's basically like having 2 armor buffs at the same time. And then it also gives you kind of like a burst heal. So I typically use these like for emergencies or for really difficult content. But yeah, basically anything is fine in terms of your potion. And then checking out the race here, Khajiit would be the best option for the race, particularly if you're playing solo due to the Feline Ambush passive for 10% bonus critical damage and critical healing. I also like how they have the max stats here as well, helping to pump up our overall stat sheet. But that covers the basics, so let's take a look at the gear setup next. Starting with the obvious, we're going to be using Sergeant's Mail for that heavy attack bonus. Not only does this add a lot of damage to your heavy attacks, but it also helps a lot with survivability, giving you more maximum health, for example, which is going to help increase the size of your damage shield. Health recovery is not a bad stat either for soloing, as this can give you some health back over time while your shields are active especially. And yeah, we'll be running this as a lightning staff with the precise trait and the shock glyph. This will count for 2 pieces of the set bonus since it is a 2-handed weapon. You'll see this is a heavy armor set, so it makes the most sense to run the chest piece just to take advantage of all the resists. You can even run like a reinforced chest or something to get more resistances. Divines is totally fine as well. And then 2 pieces on jewelry. So we got the necklace and the ring of the sergeant, both bloodthirsty, both with the weapon and spell damage enchant. So that is our first 5-piece set. Again, we're scaling up that heavy attack damage as much as possible. For a second 5-piece set, that's really flexible. I've tested a lot of different sets on this build, and most of them are pretty comparable. Like, there's not a big difference, especially in solo content, with what you choose for your second set. Currently, I'm using Stormmaster, which is a medium armor base game set. This one is nice because it gives you 2 critical chance bonuses, in addition to the weapon and spell damage bonus, and then the bonus to your heavy attack damage when you critically strike. So I like the extra crit chance bonus. I like especially that it is medium armor, and because we're doing the heavy attack here, we don't really need any sustain from light armor, so we'll get better resistances from using medium armor, we'll get better crit damage, more weapon and spell damage from all those medium armor passives. So this actually works out really well. If you don't have this, another option you could use here would be Deadly Strike. That's actually still pretty effective on heavy attack builds due to buffing the channeled portion of the heavy attack and some of the extra other dots that we have on this build. So Deadly Strike comes in essentially the same for solo content in terms of damage. So yeah, you could run Deadly Strike there. Beacon of Oblivion, the Sorcerer set from Infinite Archive, is another option here, as well as Noble Duelist, which is a light armor set. This will give you slightly more crit chance and penetration, though with the downside of having less weapon and spell damage and less critical damage. Again, the point is that the second set is really an option, and it depends on what you have access to. Many of these sets are comparable overall, especially when you're playing solo. So that being said, I am using 5 pieces of Stormmaster right now on the body. So again, that's Stormmaster boots, legs, hands, waist, and shoulder, all with the Max Magicka glyph and with Divines as the trait. You can see that's going to give us 1 piece left over for the monster set on the body, so 1 piece of Slimecraw is still pretty good. This is giving you a bonus to crit chance, even though it is less this patch. It's not very much less. That's probably less than 0.5% than what it was in the past. But anything with crit damage would be fine here. You could run Ice Heart as well. Just make sure you have Max Magic and Divines. And I did go with a light armor piece here. It's nice to balance whatever you don't have on the body for your second 5-piece set. You should put that on the helmet or the shoulder. So since I'm running 5 pieces of medium, basically, I would want to make sure I have heavy chest and at least 1 piece of light armor. To activate my Undaunted armor passives, those are going to give me 6% bonus Magicka health and max stamina. Same thing if you're running Noble Duelist, 5 light pieces on the body, you would want to run the helmet in medium just to make sure you're taking advantage of all 3 armor types. Of course, last but not least, we have to talk about the Mythic here, which in this case is the Oaken Soul Ring. Still very good in Update 46, particularly for 1 bar and heavy attack builds. This just gives you so many buffs that it's hard to pass this up. It just makes the build super easy, especially buffs like Empower, which are going to increase the damage of our heavy attack. Major Resolve is going to give us more armor. We get both of our major damage and crit chance bonuses, so it really does help to simplify things a lot, and it's really effective. I'll have a guide for this over in the written guide. If you don't have your Oaken Soul Ring yet, check out that guide. Make sure you pick it up, particularly if you like this 1 bar playstyle. But yeah, that's the setup. Again, extremely simple. We got 5 pieces of Sergeant's Mail with the Lightning Staff, 5 pieces of Storm Master, 1 piece Slimecraw with the Oaken Soul Ring. All right, let's jump into the skills next, starting with subclassing. And what does this look like? Well, I'll do more the advanced version first, and then we'll talk about an easier, more beginner-friendly setup. So for this version, we're starting obviously as the Sorcerer. That's going to be your main class. And then we're starting with Storm Calling as our primary skill line. Why is that? Well, for solo content, it gives you Critical Surge. It's probably one of the best buffs for soloists in the game. Essentially like a mini Ring of the Pale Order. Every 1 second, you'll be getting 3,600 health back. And this does crit quite a bit. So, that'll be between 6 and 7k health per second when that crits. So it's just passive healing. It's a really nice passive healing buff. Other than that, we're really just taking advantage of the passives. Energize, for example, giving us bonus 5% shock damage to our lightning staff. That's really helpful. Amplitude, up to 10% bonus damage done against enemies based on their missing health. Expert Mage, we're getting a little bit bonus weapon and spell damage here. And yeah, mostly we're running this for crit surge. You could also run Hurricane on occasion. So yeah, really simple, really effective skill line to run on your heavy attack Sorcerer. Next up, and I actually run this on both versions of the build, you want to think about running Assassination from the Nightblade class. Many good reasons to run this as a supporting skill line for any type of DPS or solo build in the game right now. It's pretty strong. Due to skills like this, Merciless Resolve is giving us a stacked bonus to weapon and spell damage. This one is 30 weapon and spell damage up to 10 times, so essentially 300 bonus weapon and spell damage if you don't cast the ability. But when we do cast this, we get a huge burst of damage as well as a very sizable heal. So what you'll see in some of the gameplay and in the rotation, which I showcase later, this is just a big burst of damage, and then you can use it when you need a burst heal too at the same time. It's a really flexible skill. On top of that, our Nightblade Assassination Ultimate Soul Harvest is actually incredibly powerful as well. Not only does this deal good single target damage, but it increases your damage against the target by 20% for 8 seconds. Also, we get 10 ultimate back per kill, which means you'll get it back even faster when you're going through dungeons or you're killing a lot of enemies. But this does amplify the damage of your lightning attack, channeled heavy attack, because that is single target damage primarily against the enemy that you've targeted, and then it will explode after you do the full channeled attack. So Soul Harvest, I think, is a really underrated ultimate, definitely worth checking out on this build. But not just that, we have 2 really strong skills, but also really strong passives, you guys. A ton of crit chance if you're flanking. Harder to get this on a solo build, but you can still take advantage of this occasionally. If you're with a companion, it's going to be even better, even more effective for you. Executioner is just amazing for sustain. It's going to help you get a lot of resources back very quickly, depending on how many enemies you're fighting against. Pressure points, of course, is giving us even more crit chance, 2.5% per ability slotted, so about 5% there. And then the hemorrhage passive is giving us 10% bonus critical damage, plus minor savagery for even more passive crit chance. So yeah, you saw the stat sheet already. When we're in combat with assassination passives, we're closer to 70% crit chance. And then that's going to go up an extra 20% in execute range, which I'll show you in just a minute. But yeah, both versions of this build, I do recommend picking up Nightblade Assassination just for that extra damage. The extra burst heal from Merciless Resolve is really nice too. But that brings us to our third and final skill line, which is optional. I do like running Gravelord for the Necromancer class for solo content specifically due to this skill right here, Unnerving Boneyard, which is unique. It's an AoE, Major Breach, and Minor Vulnerability. So it's reducing the physical and spell resistance by all enemies, for all enemies in the area by about 6,000, which is really good. Does decent damage as well, and it's going to help us proc our Necromancer passives. Now, you do have Glacial Colossus from the skill line, which is a pretty powerful skill that I would recommend in certain situations, specifically on tougher bosses that have waves of adds that come in at specific times during the fight, where you can time this out because this can stun those enemies and also burst down their health pretty quickly. So situationally, this is a good ultimate to run as well. Worth unlocking for sure. But in our passives, I was talking about that 20% crit that comes from the Death Knell passive from the Necromancer. So when enemies are under 33% health, we'll have nearly 100% crit chance on this build of making your damage spike extremely high in that execute phase, which is really great with the Lightning Staff. It helps to simplify things a lot. Don't forget we have Dismember here. So basically, when you have a Necro skill active, which in this case is our Boneyard, at all times, we'll be getting an extra 3k penetration from that. And then Rapid Rot. This actually affects our dots on the build as well as the heavy attack ticks from the channel damage, which do count as damage over time. So that's what I recommend for subclassing. Let's go ahead and take a look at the skill loadout here to see how everything works. So we've got Boneyard, like we said, AoE Breach, and Minor Vulnerability. We're going to have Critical Surge for that healing. That passive healing is really important. We have a Damage Shield next, and some of you may be wondering what this is. Well, since we're not running Daedric Summoning, we don't have access to Hardened Ward, but we can still get multiple different damage shields from different places. Warding Soul is from the Scribing skills, and this one gives you a pretty decent sized shield with different effects. Here I've chosen Healing Over Time as well as Major Vitality to increase my healing and my damage shield strength. If you don't have access to Scribing yet, that's where the second version of this build comes into play, which I will showcase in just a minute. But then we've got Unstable Wall of Storms. That comes from the Destruction Staff skill line. This is one of our main damage over time effects, but it also does exploding area damage, and it helps us to proc off balance. That's going to be really important to maximize our heavy attack damage, so you do want some source of off balance on this build. Unstable Wall is really effective in that way, and you can also use it kind of as a AoE spammable in between your heavy attacks. Then we've got Merciless Resolve. Again, that's our assassination skill. And then Soul Harvest, that's your assassination ultimate. So there you go. That is our loadout for this version of the build, using Stormcalling, Assassination, and Gravelord. How does it look in terms of a rotation? Well, it's extremely easy. All you really have to do, maintain your crit surge in content. You want to drop the Boneyard ability to debuff. You want to use your ultimate when you have it ready. Maximize your damage. Wall of Elements to set off balance, and then just heavy attack with the wall in between. Maintaining those debuffs, right? So Gravelord, maintain that. Maintain your wall. Maintain your critical surge. You can use your shield in between when you need it. And then once you get your Merciless Resolve up to about 10 stacks there, you can actually fire it off whenever you want to get a little bit more burst damage. I can fire it off again. Once you get to 10 stacks, it's wasted, so you can just fire it and then stack it back up to 10 again. It also helps if you wait for your ult to fire and then fire Merciless. That's going to be a little bit higher damage. Again, maintain crit surge for the extra healing. And then, like I said, towards the end, if you want to finish off an enemy faster, that's when you can use Merciless Resolve, especially when it's powered with the Nightblade ultimate. Again, what we've done with subclassing and scribing specifically is we've dropped Daedric Summoning because we can take advantage of the Wield Soul ability set up as a damage shield. So the way that that looks is you have the damage shield focus script. It's going to be your main script, obviously. Not as good as Hardened Ward in terms of the shield, but it is cool because you can apply different things to it, right? You could do Class Mastery as a Sorcerer for extra shock damage. You could do Druid's Resurgence for extra sustain. I prefer Sage's Remedy just for an extra heal over time. This is going to help crit surge for more difficult content. So now you don't have just the single heal from crit surge. You're actually layering in 2 heal over times, essentially. And then you can do something like Vitality. Again, this increases the size of your next shield and also increases your healing received. So your crit surge will heal for more with this skill active as well. That's how you would set that up. Version 2 of this build, as I said, is a little bit simpler. For this version, I'm actually going to keep it more Sorcerer focused, so I'll be adding back Daedric Summoning in place of Gravelord. What that means is we can run our Sorcerer damage shield. In this case, what I typically like here is Regenerative Ward. This gives you cost reduction. It gives you a longer duration, which is nice. And it also gives you a heal every time you activate it. You can also use Hardened Ward. Obviously, it'll give you a much stronger shield, but without any healing built in. With Daedric Summoning, you can also run Bound Armor, which we can morph to Bound Aegis. And this gives us a lot more max magicka on the build, 8%. The other buffs are a little bit redundant with the Oaken Soul Ring, but this will obviously make your rotation a lot simpler. So you could run Ward instead of the shield from Scribing. Like I said, you could use Bound Aegis to really simplify the rotation. Or to make sure that you have Major Breach, you would run either Weakness to Elements here. You can morph that to Elemental Susceptibility for the extra status effects. Or if you'd still like AoE Major Breach, which is honestly really nice for heavy attack builds, then you could use something like Razor Caltrops. That comes from the Assault skill line. Now, right away, you'll notice that this version of the build is not going to do quite as much damage, though it will be probably better in terms of defenses. The passives from Daedric Summoning are not ideal. They are more pet focused. But you can get, for example, 15% cost reduction of ultimates. You also get 5% extra magicka and stamina. That can be nice when combined with Bound Aegis. But what's nice about this build is the rotation is still extremely easy. You just have your 2 dots, your wall, and then caltrops in this case, and then your heavy attacking in between. Making sure to use your ultimate when it pops up. You can still fire off Merciless in between attacks when it's ready. And then you still have access to your shield for damage absorption. All right, let's check out champion points next. As usual, of this breakdown for 300, 600, 900, and 1200 champion points over in the written guide, so check the link below if you'd like to see that. But in terms of just the slotted stars here, very quickly, in the green tree, we've got Steed's Blessing, followed up with Master Gatherer, Gifted Rider, Warmount. In the blue tree, you'll want to start over here in Extended Might, making sure you pick up the Weapons Expert slotted star first. This gives you a big 20% bonus damage done to heavy attacks. You can follow that up with Fighting Finesse for more crit damage. Deadly Aim for more single target damage. It's going to buff your Lightning Staff attack specifically. And then Mastered Arms for direct damage, helping to buff that Merciless Resolve as well as the Explosion from your Wall of Elements. And finally, in the red tree, what we're using is Fortified for the extra armor. Boundless Vitality for more max health, that's always good. Over here, I've got Bastion for the increased damage shield size. That's definitely a must-have for soloing. And another really good option, since we don't need the recovery at all, over here we can pick up the Celerity node. This gives us 10% bonus movement speed at all times, which is really nice for a heavy attack build, just to counter the slowness of that heavy attack channel. Again, check out the written guide if you want to see the breakdown for all of those. In terms of the outfit style, if you're curious about this, this is actually a costume. This is the Grim Harvester. So that's going to wrap up this build video for the solo 1-bar Magicka Sorcerer. Don't forget though that we have a written guide with all the alternate skills, gear, passives, champion points listed, and much, much more. Just grab the link for that down below. And if you're liking the new subclassing builds, we're also creating even more for our Tier 2 channel members called the Elite Squad, like our Unkillable Druid build, which combines powerful fire and lightning magic with animal companions to fight by your side. I've been having a ton of fun with this build recently too, because it just feels like a brand new class, a fully functioning Druid in ESO. Members of our Tier 2 Elite Squad can unlock this build right now along with dozens of other members-only builds and guides. So if you're interested in supporting the channel, that's a really easy way to do it, and you get a truckload of bonus content, not to mention early access to videos and members-only Discord. Just make sure to select the Elite Squad option if you're interested, and to get started, just click on the Join button down below or the membership link in the description to see our complete library of members-only builds and guides. Huge shout out as always to our channel members who make this channel possible. I truly could not do what I do without you, so thanks again. And thanks to all of you for watching this video. Hope you're doing well, stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next one.